Stop. Look closely at your hand. Do you believe, truly believe, that the you seeing that hand right now is the same you who started who'd watching this video 10 seconds ago? We live our entire lives under a hypnotic spell, convinced that we are a solid, unchanging entity moving through time. But what if that feeling is the greatest illusion ever created? What if the self you are so desperately trying to protect and satisfy has already vanished by the time you finish this sentence? To understand the deepest mystery of your existence, we must answer the question that has haunted sages, philosophers, and scientists for millennia: what is the true nature of consciousness? When the Buddha, the awakened one, turned his gaze inward to examine the machinery of the mind, he did not find a soul. He did not find a mystical container. When he spoke of consciousness, Viññāṇa, in the ancient Pali language, he offered a definition so simple yet so radical that it shatters our conventional reality. He said consciousness is simply that which knows. But do not let the simplicity deceive you. This is not a static knowing. Consciousness is not a box, it is not a room. And it is certainly not a hidden little man sitting inside your head watching the world through the windows of your eyes. It is not a stage where your experiences perform. It is the performance itself. It is the very act of knowing. It is a dynamic, vibrating activity, a process that combusts into existence only when there is something to be known. Think of the action of cutting. You cannot go into a room and find cutting sitting on a table by itself. Cutting is not an object. Cutting is the event that happens precisely when a sharp blade meets a piece of wood. In that exact moment of contact, cutting is born. When the knife is lifted, cutting vanishes. It leaves no trace of itself as an entity. Consciousness works exactly the same way. It is the spark that ignites when a sense organ meets an object and attention is present. It is the friction of reality. The Buddha deconstructed this phenomenon into 6 distinct frequencies, 6 kinds of fire, each dependent on its own fuel. There is I, consciousness, which explodes into being when the I meets visible forms and light. There is ear, consciousness, the vibration arising when the ear meets sound waves. There is nose, consciousness, the chemical marriage of the nose and scent. Tongue, consciousness, the intimacy of the tongue and taste. Body, consciousness, the vast landscape of sensation where the body meets touch, heat, or cold. And finally, mind consciousness, the subtle theater where the mind meets thoughts, memories, or mental images. Here is the secret that unlocks the illusion. Each of these types of consciousness arises only and strictly only when its specific causes come together. And each one dies utterly and completely when those causes separate. Therefore, consciousness is always about something. It is always leaning on an object. It never stands alone in a void. It is impossible to have consciousness without an object, just as it is impossible to have a reflection without a mirror. Right now, in this very second, as these words flow into your mind, I consciousness is actively knowing the shapes and colors on your screen. Simultaneously, mind consciousness is rapidly decoding meaning, weaving concepts into understanding. If you turn inward and try to find the knower behind this process, if you look for the wizard behind the curtain, you will find nothing. You will find only empty space. You cannot find a separate self because there is no separate self. There is only the act of knowing itself. Just seeing, just hearing, just knowing. Visualize consciousness like the beam of a powerful flashlight in a pitch black room. The beam exists only when it strikes a wall or an object. If you shine it into an infinite, empty void where there is absolutely nothing to reflect the light, the beam itself becomes invisible. It ceases to exist as a perceived phenomenon. In the same way, consciousness and its object are lovers that are born together and die together. They are entangled. Consider your experience right now. Your I, consciousness, appears because three specific conditions have conspired to create this moment, a functioning physical I. The photons of light from this screen, and your attention turning toward them. If you close your eyes, that specific universe of sight collapses instantly. If you look away, it dissolves. If you lose interest and drift into a daydream, the visual data fades into the background, unseen. Consciousness is not hiding in the dark corners of your brain, waiting to jump out. It is not lying in wait. It is born fresh, brand new, pristine each time the conditions meet. And it ends, creating a total silence as soon as they break apart. The ancient texts offer a profound insight to consciousness is named according to the conditions through which it arises. Just as fire is named by its fuel, wood fire, oil fire, grass fire, consciousness is defined by its sensory door. When it burns because of the I and forms, we call it I consciousness. When it burns because of the ear and sounds, it is ear consciousness. The identity of your awareness is fully shaped by the temporary conditions that give birth to it. This understanding is a sword that cuts deeply into the comfortable, solid view we hold of ourselves. We like to believe we are the main character, the solid core, the eternal soul, the unchanging observer sitting safely behind the eyes, watching life go by. But the Buddha reveals that this observer is a phantom. Consciousness is not a solid raka, it is a waterfall. It is a changing process, appearing and vanishing moment by moment, completely dependent on fragile causes with absolutely no independent existence of its own. However, seeing this truth is incredibly difficult. Why? Because consciousness is the lens through which we see everything else. Trying to look at consciousness is like an eye trying to see itself directly without a mirror. It is the subject trying to become the object. There is another formidable barrier: speed. The velocity of the mind is terrifyingly fast. By the time the thought, I am conscious, forms in your verbal mind, the actual moment of pure consciousness that triggered it is already dead and gone. It belongs to the past. What we usually encounter is only the echo, the memory of a moment of knowing, not the live, vibrating moment itself. This incredible speed produces the great illusion of continuity, because we cannot perceive the microscopic birth and death of each tiny mind moment, because if they flicker billions of times faster than a lightning bolt, we feel there is one smooth, unbroken stream of me. But this sense of continuity is a trick of the mind, a magic trick of velocity. In the blink of an eye, countless moments arise and pass away. Each one is distinct. Each one is new. Each one is different from the one before it. It is exactly like watching a film in a cinema. You look at the screen and see a person walking smoothly across the room. It looks continuous. It looks real. Yet, if you slow the projector down, you realize there is no movement at all. There are only still images, separate static frames, flashing so quickly 24 frames per second that the gaps between them disappear to the naked eye. The movement is an illusion created by the brain. In the same way, what feels like one continuous awareness of your life is actually a rapid-fire series of separate moments of consciousness. Staccato bursts of knowing, flowing on and on. If you accept this, the implications are staggering. It means the person you remember from just a moment ago, that collection of consciousness moments, has already vanished. That person is dead. The you who began reading this sentence has dissolved. There is no single, fixed you traveling unchanged through the tunnel of time. There is only this rapid series of arising and passing, a relay race where the baton is passed. But the runner is never the same. The Buddha compared consciousness to a mighty river. We stand on the bank and point, saying, "Look, that is the Ganges River." We speak of it as if it were one single, solid thing. But is it? At every second, new water flows in, and old water flows out. The sediment changes. The temperature changes. The speed changes. No single drop remains in the same place for 2 consecutive moments. The pattern looks stable. The shape of the river seems permanent. Yet the content is never the same twice. Consciousness is just like this river. The overall pattern of your personality, your memories, your habits, it seems continuous. But the actual moments of knowing are a chaotic flux, always changing, never repeating, flowing on without a solid owner, without a master. Now, let us look through the eyes of the Buddha as he gazed deeply into this river. He saw that consciousness, like all conditioned things in this universe, bears 3 undeniable marks, 3 universal fingerprints: Anicca, impermanence; Dukkha, unsatisfactoriness; and Anatta, not self. When you see these 3 marks clearly in your own immediate experience, the heavy iron chains of me and mind begin to rust and break. The first mark is Anicca, impermanence. The Buddha observed all day and night. What arises is different. What passes is different. Every moment of consciousness is a birth. Every moment is a death. It does not slowly evolve, it is replaced. All the 5 aggregates that make up a human being: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Consciousness is the most volatile. It changes the fastest. Your physical body can hold roughly the same shape for years. It ages slowly. But consciousness, it cannot last even for the duration of a single heartbeat. In the time it takes you to snap your fingers, countless moments of knowing have already appeared and disappeared into the void. If you sit quietly in meditation and watch your mind with high-resolution attention, you can taste this truth. Thoughts come from nowhere. They hover for a microsecond. They vanish. Even when you think, "I am watching my breath," the consciousness that knew the in breath is dead before the out breath begins. One moment does not transform into the next. One ends completely, and another begins from scratch. The second mark is Dukkha, unsatisfactoriness. This is often mistranslated as simple suffering, but here it means incapable of providing lasting satisfaction. Consciousness, as a natural process, is not the problem. The problem starts when we try to freeze it. The problem starts when we try to turn this flowing river into a statue called me. We try to build a house on top of a flowing waterfall. The early teachings do not say consciousness is suffering. They say clinging consciousness is suffering, consciousness that is grasped, hoarded, and identified as self. When we do this, life becomes incredibly heavy. You try to remain the one who is aware. You struggle to keep your attention steady, to hold on to a happy state, to force clarity when you are tired. But awareness keeps slipping like sand through your fingers. Joy fades into boredom. The mind clouds over with fog. You feel responsible for something that is changing faster than you can possibly control, like trying to catch smoke in your bare hands. The friction of holding on to the unholdable is dukkha. This leads us to the third and most profound mark, Anatta, self. In the Anatta Sutta, the Buddha poses a challenge. If consciousness were truly yourself, if it were truly you, could you command it? Could you say, "Let my consciousness be like this. Let it not be like that"? Clearly, you cannot. You are not the king of your mind. You cannot stop consciousness from arising when its conditions are present. You cannot order it to be bright and alert when you are exhausted. You cannot command it to be pleasant when pain is radiating through your body. In each moment, sounds invade your awareness, whether you invited them or not. Thoughts intrude without your permission. Many people still argue, but I experience consciousness, so how is it not me? When you look for a separate owner of the experience, what do you actually find? Do you find a soul? No. You find only more moments of awareness. You find consciousness knowing consciousness. It is a hall of mirrors. There is no fibsed observer standing outside the flow on a riverbanker. There is only the flow itself. Even the thought, "I am the one who is conscious," is just another short, lived bubble floating in the stream of consciousness. The Buddha taught that consciousness is part of the great chain of dependent origination. It sits in the middle, a bridge between the past and the future. It is created by what comes before it, and it conditions what comes after it. Think of fire again. Fire is not stored inside the wood. It is not hiding in the air. It is not waiting in the match. Fire is the event that happens when heat, fuel, and oxygen meet. When those conditions separate, the fire does not go somewhere. It does not pack its bags and move to another location. It simply ceases to be. It extinguishes. Consciousness is the same. It is a relationship. It is a combustion. Because it depends completely on conditions, it has no permanent core. It is empty of independent existence. When you look closely in deep meditation, you do not find a stable thing called consciousness. You find only conditions converging, a moment of knowing flashing into existence, and then fading away. When you see this again and again, not as a philosophical theory, but as a visceral reality in your own nervous system, the habit of identification begins to loosen. The grip softens. You stop trying to be consciousness. You stop defending it as me and mine. You start to see it simply as a natural event, like the weather. Clouds form, rain falls, sky clears. Thoughts form, knowing arises, awareness passes. No owner, no lasting self inside it. In that clear seeing, the tight fist of the ego begins to open, and a quiet, vast freedom starts to appear. Modern science also asks the question, what is consciousness? This leads us to what philosophers call the hard problem. Science can map the brain with exquisite detail. It can trace the electrical storms in the neurons, but it still cannot explain why there is experience at all. Why is there something it feels like to see the color red? Why is there a raw feeling of pain, rather than just a neural signal? Why does sugar taste sweet? Science approaches this mystery from the outside. The aim is to build a complete theory. The method is objective measurement brain scans, data, experiments. The motivation is curiosity, the hunger to understand how the machine works. Buddhism asks a fundamentally different question. What role does consciousness play in suffering and in freedom? The Buddha did not encourage abstract metaphysical debates like, is consciousness the same as the body or different? He said those views are a thicket, a tangle that does not lead to peace. The Buddhist goal is not to define what consciousness is for a textbook, but to be free from the way it binds us when it is mixed with craving and ignorance. The method is to study from the inside direct, unflinching observation. The motivation is simple, sharp, and urgent to end suffering. Science looks at consciousness with fascination, like a biologist studying a new species of snake from behind a glass wall. They want to map its scales, measure its venom, and understand its evolution. Buddhism looks at consciousness, especially when we cling to it, as a snake that is currently wrapped around your neck. The practitioner is not interested in a perfect theory of the snake's biology. They want to unwind it. They want to get it off. Science offers you a map. Buddhism offers you a vehicle. From the scientific perspective, consciousness is an object of knowledge. We ask, how does it arise? Which brain regions light up? How can we model it? From the Buddhist perspective, consciousness is the theater of our liberation or our imprisonment. We ask, what happens in the mind when I cling to this moment? What happens when I let go? How does this specific way of relating to experience lead to tension or ease? This does not mean Buddhism is against knowledge. Not at all. It means that for the Buddha, knowledge is only truly valuable if it acts as a medicine to reduce suffering. A brilliant theory of consciousness that does not lessen your greed, your anger, or your confusion is, in the Buddhist sense, a useless toy. Science refines our concepts of consciousness. Buddhism refines our relationship to consciousness. There is also a subtle difference in how causes are viewed. Modern science often speaks as if the brain produces consciousness the way a turbine produces electricity. Buddhism speaks in terms of conditions meeting. The brain is a vital condition, yes, but not the sole creator. In any moment of experience, a vast network of conditions must align: a physical base, a sense organ, an external object, attention, past habits, and present intentions. When the stars align, knowing happens. When one key condition is missing, that universe of knowing fails to launch. Understanding the theory is not enough. You cannot satisfy your hunger by reading a menu. The Buddha's invitation is Vipassana, come and see. Look directly into the laboratory of your own body and mind. The practice here is Vipassana, insight meditation. It is the art of watching the mind as it moves, frame by frame. Sit quietly. Be alert but relaxed, like a cat watching a mouse hole. Take the breath as a simple anchor to keep you from drifting, but stay open to whatever appears. A sound, a sensation in the knee, a sudden memory. When a sound comes, perhaps a car honking out, notice the interruption. For a brief, pure instant, there is just bare hearing. Just sound vibrating against the eardrum. Pure knowing, without a name, without a story. Then, a split second later, the mind's machinery kicks in. It stamps a label on the sound car. Then it stamps a judgment, annoying, loud, disturbing my peace. This happens automatically. It is not a personal decision you made. It is a reflex. But here lies the crucial secret, the holy grail of practices. Between the automatic evaluation, annoying, and your emotional reaction, I hate this, there is a gap. It is tiny, perhaps only a millisecond, but it is there. After annoying sound and before I am angry, there is a small, open space of potential freedom. If you can catch that space, if your mindfulness is sharp enough to notice it, you can choose not to feed the beast. You don't do this by fighting the anger or pushing it away. You do it by seeing clearly, this is automatic evaluation. And look, here comes the craving for silence. When the seeing is clear, the reaction loses its fuel. Like a small fire that dies out when you stop throwing logs onto it, the anger fades on its own. With practice, this gap widens. At first, you miss it completely and only realize you were angry an hour later. Then, you catch it just after it happens. Eventually, you see the spark before it becomes a flame. And finally, you see it, smile at it, and let it pass without being burned. This is the beginning of real freedom. You can apply this everywhere. You see something beautiful, a person, a car, a phone. Seeing happens. Then the automatic label pleasant. Then the craving, I want this. I need this to be complete. Try to recognize the mechanism, this is craving, pulling the mind. When you see the hook, you don't bite. The same applies to pain. Pain is inevitable in a human body. The mind immediately marks it as unpleasant. But the narrative, I hate this pain, this is unfair, when will it stop, that is extra. That is the second arrow. The Buddha taught that the first arrow, pain, is part of life. The second arrow, suffering, resistance, is optional. You do not need to make the pain pleasant. You only need to stop adding the mental screaming on top of it. The deepest practice is this: when consciousness arises, do not add self to it. Do not add clinging. How? Not by force, but by the wisdom of not me, not mine. This consciousness is not me. It is a natural event. This feeling is not mine. It is weather passing through. When this is seen directly, not just as a comforting idea, but as a truth, the burden falls off your shoulders. You will know it is working when your reactions feel less solid. You feel lighter. Emotions still appear, storms still pass through, but they don't knock over the house. They pass more quickly. You feel a quiet, profound relief, like taking off a backpack you didn't realize you had been carrying for 20 years. This is not becoming a zombie. This is not dullness or numbness. It is consciousness still working, seeing, hearing, thinking, planning, but it is no longer driven by the frantic, neurotic energy of craving and defense. We usually live by the credo, I am consciousness. I own this experience. I must control it. But look closely. Are you really in control? Can you stop the next thought from arising? Can you command your mood to shift instantly from sadness to joy? Each time you blindly identify, this is me, you strengthen the bars of your own cage. So the real question is not only what is consciousness, but what is my relationship to it right now? Am I its slave, caught in the drama, or am I beginning to wake up? Knowing about consciousness is helpful, but it is not the destination. What matters is loosening the grip. When consciousness is no longer fed by the fuel of identification, it becomes simple, luminous, and clear. It functions perfectly. You still navigate the world, but without the pressure to protect and build up a fictitious self. This is not the emptiness of a cold, dead void. It is the emptiness of a cloudless sky, vast, open, and filled with light. The Adana scripture speaks of the unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned. This points to a dimension of peace that reveals itself when the mind stops constructing a self moment after moment. In that peace, consciousness is just a natural process arising, knowing, passing without chains. So I ask you, is consciousness your tool, or is it your master? For most, it is a tyrant master disguised as a friend. As wisdom grows, it becomes neither tool nor master, just a phenomenon to be understood, a wave to be ridden. The invitation stands before you. Come and see. Practice the art of observation. See the process for what it is. Find the gap. Stop feeding what harms you. Let the mind release its desperate grip. This teaching is not here to give you more intellectual baggage to carry. It is here to guide you toward a direct, shattering realization. We are not here to build a stronger, better me. We are here to lay down the heavy burden of me altogether. And in that laying down, there is peace.